Hey guys, DTHD back with another video. Today we're going to talk about the logical operators of Java. Now today I'm going to cover the three main logical operators in Java. The first one is going to be the not, the second one is going to be the and the third and final one is going to be the or logical operator. Now I'm going to comment these out so that these don't create any issues when we run our code, but these are the three ones that we're actually going to focus today. Now one other thing we'd want to know before we get into the code is that these operators only work with Boolean results present before and after them. So what I mean by this is that whatever that's in front of this or statement has to be a Boolean, either a true or false kind of a result, and whatever that's behind it also has to be a true or false kind of a result. So that applies to all three of these. Now that we've established this, why don't we get to the code? So I'll start off with the not operator. Now the not operator is going to reverse the logical state of its operand. So what I mean by this is if you give this not operator a true Boolean value, what it does is that it makes that true Boolean value into a false Boolean value. And if you give it a false Boolean value, obviously it'll make it into a true Boolean value. So what I mean by this is that it gets the inverse of whatever you give to it. Now why don't we start with the Boolean over here? Let's call this Boolean x as true. Now if we use the not operator and apply to Boolean x when we print a statement such as not x, what happens is that the computer will actually print out false, because obviously it's employing or it's deploying the not operator on Boolean x, changing the true into a false value. Now that does not mean that the actual Boolean has changed in value, because if you print the actual Boolean right after this, it still says that the Boolean value is true. So the Boolean value doesn't change, but it's just that when you print this out, you're just getting the opposite of whatever that Boolean value to print. So why don't we try using this in if statements? Now a simple if statement involving this not operator is going to be something like if not x equals false, right, then we can print a statement something like sysout Boolean x is true. Now this statement is going to work because the reverse of Boolean x is actually going to be false, therefore obviously it should print Boolean x is true. So this is a very simple case of using it in an if loop, but obviously you can have something much more complex than this. Now let's move on to the next one, which is the and operator. And to show you what the and operator does, I would want to make another Boolean. Let's call this Boolean y and set it again to true. Now what an and operator does is that it checks whether a preceding condition is true, and then it will check whether the following condition is also true, after which it will say that this whole condition is true. So in simple terms, what the and does is that it goes and checks whether this first one is true, and then whether the second one is also resulting in true, and then it goes and does whatever action. So again, if you want to see what this does, let's actually just put this out here. If we want to see what it does, we can use a if statement. Now in this if statement, we can say if x equals true and y equals true, right? We can do an action over here. Why don't we say this action to be something very simple like both x and y are true, right? So this actually is going to check whether x is set to true and whether y is set to true, after which it will run this code. Now if we run this code over here, we can see that Boolean x and y are true. Now this all seems to work, but what happens when Boolean y becomes false? Now if Boolean y becomes false because of the and condition, what it has to check is whether x is true and y is true, right? Because now y is not true, this is actually not going to carry out this line of code. So in essence, really the and condition is going to be where both the preceding and the following conditions are met, after which this this action can be taken out. Now the next one is going to be the or statement, right? It's very similar to the and statement, but there's something slightly different about it. Here I have the or operator written out inside of another if statement. Now I'm going to explain to you guys how I got here. The first thing I actually did was create an integer called boy age and set it to 34. I know that's a little old to be a boy, but I also created an int called girl age and set it to 17. So this example is going to be about whether someone's a teenager or not. Now obviously the age to be a teenager is going to be usually less than 18, and that is why in this if statement, just like the way I've checked in the and statement, I'm checking whether the boy's age is less than 18, or in this case, obviously I'm using the or statement, I'm checking whether the girl's age is also less than 18. Now here I have an action for it to do, which is to print you are a teenager. Now we know that the boy's age is more than 18, but the girl's age is less than 18, so will this actually print out the statement? Now if I run the code, it actually says you are a teenager, and that is because this is a or statement, meaning that either one of these conditions can be true, resulting in this action to be taking place. So you can always have one of these conditions to be false and the other one to be true, and this will still actually print. Now this is something we actually don't really want in this case, because we're trying to see if both of them are less than 18 years old, but this is really just showing you how the or can actually work. Now before I end the video, I actually want to quickly go over what is called a truth table. Now a truth table is very relevant to these logical operators because it's really simplifying how these operators work. Now we have the not operator over here, the and operator over here, and then obviously the or operator, and a whole bunch of true and false values for P and Q. Now let's go over and talk about the not operator. Obviously this is going to reverse whatever logical statement it is. Now if we say true, that's going to become false. If we do again true, the opposite of true is still going to be false. The opposite of false is going to be true, and once again it is still true. Now if we look at the and operator, it's going to be very selective in the way that it does this, right? If only both are true, it's going to say it's true. But if any one of them is actually going to be false, or if both of them are false, it's always going to return a false value, right? We have the situation over here where P is true while Q is false. Again, it says false. While P is false and Q is true, it still says that it is false because both conditions have to be checked out when you go through an and operator. Now, if you want to take a look at the or operator, it's basically the opposite of what the and operator does. If both of them are true, it still says true. If one of them is false, though, it does say that it's true because, again, one of them has checked out. So either or can work, right? So one of them has checked out, so this is still going to return true. Again, the same is when you have P as false and the Q as true. It's still going to say true because Q is true, right? It's either one of these. Now, if both of them are false, obviously it cannot say either one of these is true, so it's going to return as false. So this is really like a condensed form of what we've just covered through those few examples. Now, this is really summing up the video. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in the comment section below. I'll try to clear them up as soon as I can. If you like this video, feel free to hit that like button. And if you want more of these Java tutorials, feel free to hit that subscribe button because there are way more of these coming out on their way.